I don't know about you, but 26 years ago when I started doing appraisals, I was told and taught right up front that the most important question that you can answer, and thus must be the first problem that you solve, is that of highest and best use.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
And welcome back to the program, everyone. Dustin Harris, once again, hanging out in the podcast chair. Got a quick one for you today, a little mini-sode. We're going to talk very briefly today about highest and best use. Yes, I realize that this is Tim Anderson's realm, and I know he and I have talked about this a lot. So, Tim, shout out to you, the Appraiser's Advocate. You can reach him, Tim, at theappraisersadvocate.com. Please, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong in anything I'm about to say today, and I know he will in a very kind and loving manner. I want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by a great company called ANow. ANow is being used by more and more appraisers nationwide, actually worldwide. It is a company actually based in Canada, but services appraisers all over the United States to help them manage their appraisal office. You can check them out by going to anow.com. Again, it's ANOW.com. All right, folks, received an email today from a listener, and he had a specific question. I don't have his permission, not that I couldn't get it, but I just haven't got it, so I'm going to keep him anonymous. But his question had to do with, and I will tell you this, his name is George, so shout out to George. Thanks for listening, and a great question. It had to do with, he didn't use these terms, but highest and best use. Specifically, his question had to do with a particular property that he was appraising, that he is currently appraising, and it is a foster home, a care facility. Now, specifically, this facility is located in a residential neighborhood. It's zoned residential. Obviously, there is an allowance in the zoning for the foster care home. I don't know if it's an old folks home or some other type of foster care, but you all know what I'm talking about. These are typically larger than typical homes. They typically are set up differently, so you might have a bedroom bath combination for every single bedroom in the particular property. In this case, he specifically pointed out that there were, I think, 3 kitchens, so 3 levels, a basement, a main level, and a second level, and they all had a kitchen. So it was truly, clearly set up for a foster care type of property. You've all been to these types of properties. I don't know how many times I've been called out to do in a property like this and doing a little research. We personally have turned it down, and I'm going to get to that after the break as to why. But George's question had to do with, how do I handle this, basically? I've got a realtor here insisting that this is a single-family home because it's in a single-family neighborhood. How do I proceed? It's a great, great question. Again, one that I want to answer and do so tepidly because I am not a highest and best use expert. But I have been appraising for 26 years, and I do have an opinion on the topic. I also have an opinion on the topic of how to automate your office. What do I mean by that, Dustin? Well, I mean, how do you make sure that everything gets done in your office and done properly? Well, you need a system like ANow. Now, especially in today's day and age when we are just inundated with orders, folks, how do you keep track of which ones you bid on? Have you ever had a situation where you were contacted by a company and the next day you received the order and you thought to yourself, I swear I bid 800 on that. Why did this come across at 600? Maybe I did say 600. I don't remember. Folks, ANow will solve that problem for you and more because they have a new quote tab. Every time we get a bid on our orders, we specifically put them in the system in such a way that we can recall them when they come across. And we can know, oh yeah, we did bid 800 on this. Let's go back to the lender and say, oh, typo, you exchange an 8 and a 6, and you need to switch them back, folks. ANow software will keep you on tabs with everything that's going on in your appraisal office. You need to check them out by going to anow.com. And by the way, at checkout, you can try this thing for 30 days for free. And trust me, you will never go back. It's podcast 30. That's the coupon code podcast 30 at anow.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. We're talking today, I'm proceeding with caution. Okay, I'm not a highest and best use expert, but I do get questions quite frequently, frankly, about certain specific situations. Now, typically those questions are dealt with in my All-Star Team Facebook page, and that is an exclusive group for those that belong to the All-Star Team. And we talk frequently about this kind of thing. Hey guys, I'm dealing with a weird one here. Who can help me? The great thing about that group is we are very, very kind to each other. There's no such thing in that group of saying, well, that's a dumb question. Let me give you a dumb answer. That doesn't happen in our group, as it does sometimes in other groups, unfortunately. Very positive, uplifting, supportive group of people there. And this is the type of question that is answered in that forum quite often. But this particular question came to me via email, and it had to do with a care home, right? Larger, maybe the standard in this neighborhood, and I'm just making stuff up, but I've seen it before, that the standard in the neighborhood is maybe a 2,000 square foot home, and this might be a 3,500 square foot home that's set up, designed quite differently. Maybe kitchens on each level, maybe bathroom en suites with each bedroom, maybe a big gathering area rather than a more typical living area. It's a great room, if you will, with things to do. You know the type of facility I'm talking about. Now, the confusion here is these typically are built right into the neighborhood, right? Just as you would find maybe an elementary school or a place of worship right in a residential neighborhood, these often are allowed in regular zoning, right? Because they are designed to try to integrate people into a very normal neighborhood lifestyle. And so zoning in a lot of municipalities allows for these types of things. And this, I think, is where the confusion comes in. And thus where the question comes in. And by the way, the bigger answer to this question really applies to more than one question. I'm going to answer the question that I answered to George, but really this can be applied to so many different things, right? What if, for example, you show up to a property and yes, it's in a residential neighborhood, even a subdivision, and it's got a shop, right? And shops are allowed in this particular subdivision, but let's say this shop has a big sign on it that says Fred's Automotive, right? And it's very apparent that this is a shop, and that people are coming and bringing their handicapped cars and asking Fred to fix them up, and they're paying him money to do so. Well, do we have a problem? It's the same question, I think, whether it be a foster home or a shop with Fred's Automotive on the outside, and a variety of different things that we deal with. Folks, this really comes down to this question of highest and best use. And I don't know about you, but 26 years ago when I started doing appraisals, I was told and taught right up front that the most important question that you can answer, and thus must be the first problem that you solve, is that of highest and best use. That you don't want to go down this path of single family and realize that the highest and best use is actually duplex. That you, as an appraiser, as a valuation expert, as a professional, need to determine highest and best use up front. And you all know the 4 tests of highest and best use. We're not going to necessarily go through them. But folks, that's really the answer I gave back to George, is what is the highest and best use? Yes, could it possibly be seen as a single family home? Yeah, I mean, it's got 3 kitchens. That's, might be an overbuilt, if you will, might be a functional problem. Certainly wouldn't be normal for the neighborhood, but could you close one eye, squint, bite your head, or bite your tongue and stand on your head and call it a single family? Maybe. I mean, maybe. But is it really, truly the highest and best use? If that thing were going to go up for sale, do you really think that the buyers would sell it as a single-family home? Most likely not without some major renovations, some major changes. And then you might have a problem with being an overbuilt in the neighborhood because, again, you've got the highest square footage of anything around you. It just kind of stands up like a sore thumb. Folks, this is the job that we do. And so my answer back to George, and it would be to you listeners as well, and again, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, the very first thing that we need to determine is highest and best use. And then the problem runs into, is it commercial? And this is an even bigger problem. It's kind of the catch-22 or catch-21. How do they call it? Catch-22, right? You can't figure out the highest and best use, whether it's commercial or not, without being a commercial guy. And thus, how do you proceed with the highest and best use study if you don't have those credentials and that ability? And I've run into it before. I'm going to give you a solution, one solution. It may not be the best solution for you, but it is one that I've used in the past. And that is, we as appraisers have an opportunity to associate with and partner with others. And there have been times that I've run into a situation. One in particular I remember was a large parcel. There was a single family home on a I don't know, maybe a 10, 15 acre parcel, maybe it's 20, which is not completely unusual in my area. But I found out through the process that this could be subdivided, that it was allowed by zoning, that it was allowed legally. And then I have a highest and best use problem. And now, do I have the opportunity, or do I have the ability, is probably a better word to use, to determine what the highest and best use is on a subdividable lot? I don't think so. In fact, I know I don't. I would not put myself out there and claim I've got that ability, because that's beyond the scope of my expertise, and furthermore, it's beyond the scope of my license. And so I did what I think is the smart thing. And that is I reached out to a commercial appraiser that I know and trust. And I said, hey, Mark, how about you partner with me? And we worked together. And he gave me his fee. And I went back to the lender and I said, listen, I'm going to have to do a bigger highest and best use study on this thing. And my commercial guy is going to charge $1,500 to help me with that. And his name's going to go on the report. And thus I need to ask for, maybe I asked for $1,800 more to cover, the back and forth. But enough more that I could now charge the client what this was worth, and I could pay my associate, my partner, if you will, in this case, a commercial person, to help me, assist me in determining what the highest and best use is. Folks, we deal with these things on a pretty regular basis, and unfortunately, I see too often, and this is my warning today, I sometimes see appraisers just kind of pressing forward and saying, yep, highest and best use is commercial, or yep, highest and best use might be commercial, but hey, I'm just going to do it as a single-family home. I once had a client, I think I've told the story here, but I had a client, and it was very clear that most likely the highest and best use was going to be something beyond my scope. That was definitely I'll just tell you, it was a dude ranch. And it was about 50 acres, and there were probably 15 cabins on this particular property. There was a big ranch house, if you will, but it's not typical to have a ranch house and 15 cabins in this area. Comps, non-existent. People were paying to come to this property. They were paying to stay and ride horses and pretend they were cowboys. And I went back to the lender and I said, listen, the highest and best use on this thing is most likely commercial. It is being used as commercial. And they said, we don't care. We want you to do it as a single family. And I said, okay, that's nice, but I can't do that. Highest and best use is not single family. We don't care. It's a residential loan. We want you to do it as single family. Well, long story short, I called the borrower and backed out that direction, even though they are not my client. I said, listen, your lender's pushing me to do this. I'm not going to do it. I'm just letting you know. We're not going to be there on Thursday as we originally planned. And he, thankfully, was very understanding and said, oh, yeah, it definitely is a dude ranch. What, they want you to do as a single family? That's crazy. And he reached out to the lender and said, you guys are nuts. You don't always get that luxury to have the homeowner on your side, as I did on that one. But the bottom line here, folks, is understanding what your abilities, capabilities are, what your responsibility is as a valuation professional. We're going to run into these situations. We often do. And you've got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, right? Thanks, Kenny. You got to know when to walk away, right? You got to know when to say that this is not for me. Folks, I'll tell you what is for you, and I talked about it earlier, that is the All-Star team and the ability to ask these types of questions and get awesome answers on our private Facebook page. Please join us. Go to theappraisercoach.com/memberships. You can read all about the All-Star team and the wonderful benefits that come from being a member of an exclusive group. Again, it's the All-Star team, and it can be found at theappraisercoach.com/memberships.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.